We're joined now by Darren O'Shannessy, Senior Analyst at the St Kilda Football Club. Darren, thanks for jumping on, mate.
My pleasure.
Mate, I got to say, St Kilda, such an iconic football club in Australia, such an iconic brand. And what you guys are doing there, and particularly yourself leading the charge with data, really leading the way in Australian football. Tell us about exactly what you're doing, what's on the agenda right now, and where data's moving forward.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a whole of club approach that we want to be at the forefront of innovation and really put investment into what's working in overseas sports within the constraints of the soft cap and the salary cap and the footy department cap that we've got. So Simon Lethlean, the coaches that we've got on board, head of high performance Matt Hornsby, everyone's really wanting to do something new that sort of takes into account what's going on in the rest of the sporting world.
Isn't that interesting? And you talk about, and for our viewers overseas in different countries throughout the world, in Australian football there is a cap, essentially a limitation and then a tax. If you spend a certain amount of money on things like data science and sports analytics within the football program. So how much of a priority, and have you noticed that it's becoming more of a priority, sports science within your organisation?
Absolutely. Sports science, particularly the physical performance of the athletes, has always been primary. It's more about now bringing in the data from all the different departments, all the different people who are collecting and sometimes don't even know that they're collecting data that could be useful to other people, and just making use of that as an organisation. So being able to get insights into how players are going to improve, where they're tracking, how the team as a whole, the strategies are working. There's a whole lot of different ways that it can go.
And Darren, you've been around this whole scene for 20 years. I mean, you would have been someone who was there at the coalface at the beginning of this being something that is very much on the landscape for sport. Hey, so I mean, the progression, how have you seen it grow? I mean, it must be exponential, the growth in the last 20 years.
Yeah, and all credit to Ted Hopkins starting Champion Data back in the 90s as well. So he brought me on in 99 and spent 10 years there in lots of different sports, but AFL has always been at the forefront of wanting more out of its numbers. So going from kick mark handball, people were drawing game maps back in the 1920s and trying to work out where the ball's going. And people are really familiar with that language of what do I need to achieve on the stats sheet to win a game. And we're just trying to make that accord with the modern game, where the number of touches you get doesn't really matter. It's all about quality. It's about connection between parts of the team and making space, and all these things are a lot harder to measure. So you need better algorithms, better software tools to do that. And
how are they developing? When you say it needs to be better, like is it coming with ease, or is it a struggle to get algorithms that really truly are relevant?
It really is a struggle. So you take a shortcut first by getting the experts in. So you look at how a coach sees the game, what they want to do, you describe that in your software, you say how often did we achieve that, and then over time you can train the algorithms when they've got all the player data to say, well, we achieved that the way the coach wanted. But you really have to start with, what are we trying to do? How do we, it's not just straight to goals to win the game. It's what are the intermediate points along the way, and how are we trying to achieve them? Are we trying to have a certain type of entry into our forward line? What are other teams doing? Should we be following the trends, or should we be just following our instincts?
Interesting point. So how is that balance between trends, data-based decision-making, and the room for intuition, instinct-based, gut feeling sort of stuff?
With 36 players on the ground, you've got to have room for instinct. You can't collect everything that's going on. And most of the time you're only looking at data about the person who's got the ball, the person who's trying to take it off him, and maybe one or two targets that he's got. So everyone else is set up to look at the what ifs. What if we win the ball out of this situation? Where can it go? If they win it, how can we defend against it? So it's really then about coaching spacing, how you look compared to where your teammates are, where your direct opponent is. When do you run? When do you have to sprint hard to make space? Not just for you, but for the next guy. There's the planning that goes into it is immense. And you do watch what other teams are doing to see, how did they make that space? I see that, and that gets adopted rapidly through the league.
And one last one before we wrap up. In terms of the way that players are responsive to this information, how do they go with the ease of being able to put it into practice?
Yeah, we get really good feedback from the players. They know all about the numbers through maybe playing fantasy sport or just collecting their own stats as a junior. We try and give them video to back that up as well, either on their next opponent or on what they've done in the game. And it really is a sort of synergistic sort of process with the coach and the player and the analyst.
Magnificent stuff. I know you're doing some great stuff with Empirics as well, working as a collective, working as a team, and of course, in a team sport, pretty vital stuff.
Yeah, so Empirics, they're a solid data science company. They've come to sport in the last couple of years and provided some of that framework that professional sport in Australia just hasn't had to do a proper database and visualization. So it's using our knowledge and just being able to sort of relax a bit that our data's being handled the right way.
Magnificent. Darren O'Shaughnessy from the St Kilda Football Club, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.